Good morning. Welcome to the MIT Sloan webinar series for incoming MBA students. Thank you for joining this webinar brought to you by the MBA Program Office. We have worked in conjunction with colleagues from other offices throughout Sloan to offer these summer webinars to help you prepare for opportunities and introduce you to relevant resources before you arrive at MIT Sloan. Today's topic is a healthcare certificate at MIT Sloan. My name is Sheila Canale, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. Presenting today is Melissa Webster, lecturer for the Health Systems Initiative. Before we start, I'll briefly go over the process, then I'll turn it over to Melissa. If you have questions during the presentation, we invite you to use the Q&A functionality to type in your questions throughout the webinar. Once the presentation ends, we'll be happy to answer all of your questions. Let's get started. Melissa, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks, Sheila. As Sheila mentioned, my name is Melissa Webster. I did my MBA here, graduated 2009. I've worked for about 20 years in industry before I came back to work at Sloan, where I am now a lecturer. I am also in the Initiative for Health Systems Innovation team and am here to speak to you today about our healthcare certificate. So what we're going over today are the big picture, why this certificate is topical, an overview of the certificate and the course timing, then a description of our 3 core courses, a little look at the electives, and then we have time for Q&A. So going on to the big picture of why healthcare is interesting and why is it not like other industries. One, it's big. Looking at the US budget here, we see that healthcare represents a quarter of that, and predictions have that growing. The US also in healthcare is an outlier, and not really in a good way. Our spending is not yielding the sort of results that you see in other countries. We have a slow clicker, so bear with us. Then you also see that the spending is not normally distributed, that a very large amount is being spent on a very small portion of the population. And my 4th point, the Affordable Care Act, coming in at over 1,000 pages, additional changes are being made, and the implications of that are not well known. So all of that creates a very complex environment in which to be operating. For the healthcare certificate, it is open to all students at MIT. So we do see undergrads, students from Sloan, students in doctoral programs across the institute. And all of them are developing skills to understand the nature of the US healthcare system, the interactions among the different entities. They're also learning about the relationship between biomedical science, clinical medicine, biomedical business. There's a large emphasis as well on tools to streamline healthcare operations and the supportive industries. And many students are also looking at how they can build new businesses in this fast-growing space. Along the way, they are building a community with other students, with faculty and industry partners. It's a great way to be connecting with others who have like interests. And thirdly, there's the signaling of being able to demonstrate your focus on healthcare to others outside of MIT, and the way that you've put your emphasis on that while during your degree. So what is the certificate comprised of? There are 3 required courses, and then you do 9 units of electives. So the 3 required courses, which we'll go into in more detail, are what we call HLab, or Healthcare Lab, then Economics of Healthcare Industries, Medicine for Managers and Entrepreneurs, and then a fairly long list of courses to select from to do your electives, and 9 units will equal 1 or 2 courses depending on the specific number of units of those courses that you select. To register for the certificate, you go to the link shown here, and you can do that at any time. You could do it today, you could do it in 18 months from now. And the advantage to doing it earlier is that it puts you on our mailing list, which we will periodically share events that are going on that are put on by HSI, that may be put on by related organizations. And there's no penalty if you sign up for this, register for the certificate and do not complete it. So it's entirely optional to register for it. We do an audit towards the end of each year to see if anyone has fulfilled the requirements, even if they haven't registered. So we will catch you, but we do strongly urge you to sign up for the certificate if it's something of interest to you. And for more information, you see the link that follows. Okay, so when do you take which course? The link that was on the prior page also has a nice graphic for looking at this as well. So 15777, which is HLab, Healthcare Lab, has 2 prerequisites that you need to take in your first year, because 15777, which is the second bullet, that you have to take in the fall of your second year, because you can't take it during fall of your first year, and it's only offered during the fall. As noted, it does extend into IAP. Because you're taking that in the second year, you have to do those prereqs in the first year, data models and decisions, or DMD as we call it, that you obviously will be taking during core, and then your intro to ops you can take during fall or spring of your first year. Then your other 2 required courses are both offered in the spring, and you could take them during your first or second year, and the electives you could do at any time. All right, so we have a video about that first required course, Healthcare Lab. We'll start in just a moment here. So the cursor should.
HLab is a unique course in various ways. The people that take it usually have a lot of passion, a lot of vibrant spirit about desire to somehow affect this industry and make it better.
It's a course that really is all-inclusive of the myriad of complexities of healthcare.
I'm a physician, and what I wanted to do when I came to Sloan was to learn more about capitalism and business practices and the business of medicine. A lot of the people that come to HLab come from the other direction. They know a lot about business, but not about healthcare. And it's a meeting in the middle. It's the beginning of a journey for both those populations.
We've had undergraduate students in the class. We have MBA students, PhD students in operations research, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, biology. We have Sloan fellows, so executive MBA programs, people that within their organizations, they may already be an executive.
That diversity of thought really pushes you to think differently.
The students work in teams with a host organization to solve a real problem that matters to the organization, that has impact, and that the senior leaders in the organization care about.
Working with the students allowed us to have a think tank where we could say, we're really wrestling with this issue around care management teams. Can you help us to find examples of highly effective care management teams? And the students would take these questions that we were wrestling with and go off and do the research.
I worked with CVS, and so we got to meet personnel, we got to interview people, we got to really have access to a wide range, top to bottom. We were working with Minute Clinic, so we actually got to go and meet Minute Clinic providers.
We did a project for MIT Medical. They wanted help with how they handle referral management.
It could be a very large organization like the Massachusetts General Hospital, or startups, as in my case, that are developing disruptive technologies.
It was very pleasing to hear that something that we worked on as a team, just as students, was able to implement real-world change in a hospital.
The poster session is always a fun day because you just kind of get to celebrate the work that you did all semester and see what your classmates were up to.
Once we secure funding, we're gonna go back after those students because it was a nice way for us to test the students on a project basis and figure out what their capabilities are.
I have clarity now that my future is at the intersection of healthcare and technology, and I think the healthcare lab has given me both the knowledge and the connections that are required to make that happen.
We're already starting to see these students that graduate from the course going into key positions in the health innovation space or healthcare delivery systems.
Transforming health systems is a monumental challenge, but we have to keep working at it. We have to succeed. It is one of the key challenges of our world, of our time.
So that gives you a sense for how dynamic that class is. It is one of Sloan's action learning labs. So project-based learning is a core part of the course. It also brings in guest speakers. The students have an opportunity to sign up to have lunches with them afterwards, and highly rated class for the lecture content, plus the dynamic part of doing the projects. And the projects are organizations in the US, current management challenges that they're facing. The students do their on-site work typically during IAP for the healthcare lab. So the next of the 3 required courses, Economics of the Healthcare Industries, taught by Joe Doyle. Joe presents this view for you. So as to the course outline, you see that it talks about both US healthcare as well as economics of global health. It is an opportunity to give you a deep dive into really the economics. And that's one of the great things about the 3 required courses, that they each present a really different slice of healthcare. Once again, you see some fantastic use of guest speakers to present current points of view. I can tell you from being in sessions like this, it's a great opportunity to be able to ask questions of people in industry and get answers to your questions on the issues that they are facing. And they are often very frank in how they are dealing with those. So the third one, Medicine for Managers and Entrepreneurs. And this is the only course at Sloan where you have your hand on actual organs. So they bring, as part of the course, they bring organs to the classroom. And to help you understand the science side of what you are encountering on the business side, and how those relate. So weekly 3-hour sessions, each focusing on a specific field. And at the end, you are proposing a biomedical business based on what you've been learning in the course. And they pair in each course, each class session, they are pairing the medical background on something plus the industry representative related to that. So you have that, again, that combination of the lecture plus the practitioner viewpoint. Now on to the electives for the certificates. Just to touch on 4, and you see the link there for looking at the full list. To touch on 4, the first operations lab, that is another action learning lab at Sloan. And if you do a healthcare project in that lab, or it could be another lab course that you do a project in healthcare, you can petition for that to be counted as your elective. Then healthcare finance with Andrew Lowe. Another course is biomedical innovations. Another one to call out is advances in biomanufacturing. So you can start to see some of the breadth that is covered in the electives. And we do offer the option that other health-related courses at across MIT and other universities can be counted as your electives. We have a form on our website to petition for that. So finally, before we move to Q&A, I'll point out the resources for you. The first is the general link for the healthcare certificate information. Again, showing you the one for registering for the certificate. And then if you have any more specific questions, I listed some contacts here for you, and what I recommend is to email the first two. So our healthinnovation@mit.edu plus myself. I'm included on the Health Innovation one, so that is your safest one, but if you wish, you can do both of us. The Health Innovation one also gets my admin involved, which is definitely helpful for keeping things moving along. Then, just for your reference, the Healthcare Certificate Committee here, Anna Quagras, and that is pronounced Anna, it's the Dutch pronunciation. Anna and Richard and Joe are the committee members of that healthcare certificate. You saw Anna in the healthcare lab video earlier, along with Retzef Levy, one of our other key faculty members in this area. So we now can move to Q&A, and Sheila.
Thank you, Melissa. Now we'll start the Q&A. If you have not already done so, please include any questions you might have in the Q&A functionality. We'll answer these questions in the order received. I also want to point out that we have the MBA program staff member, Sean Fun, who will assist in answering any questions. He's an MBA academic advisor as well. Great, so we're getting questions. We're going to start with the first one. When can I sign up for the certificate?
So you could sign up starting today. There's, as I mentioned, you have a wide range of time. You can sign up anywhere between today and you actually don't have to sign up. We will do an audit shortly before your graduation, and if you have taken all of the required courses, we should catch you in that audit and send you a lovely email telling you that you have received the certificate. However, I strongly urge you at some point over the next 12 months to sign up for the certificate, register for it. The advantage to registering earlier, of course, is that you get communications periodically from us of activities that might be of interest to you. So there's no penalty to registering and not completing, so I would recommend registering today.
A second question came up. Can you substitute 15233 Global Health Lab for 1577 Healthcare Lab?
You cannot substitute it for Healthcare Lab. However, you could use 15233 for an elective. So that's the typical answer. If you still think that there's a strong case for that, then go to the website and fill out the form for an exception, and we will take a further look at that.
Another question is, I've checked out the list of electives. I'm interested in classes that look into hospital operations, specifically optimizing cost structure and pricing. Will you have any classes of this type?
Yes, and I am just, I need to look at the list of electives myself to more specifically answer your question. So let's circle back on that, and Sheila, help me remember to do that. The projects in Healthcare Lab often are looking at that.
So we're going to move to another question and then come back to that one. Let's just.
This is Chan. Here's another question. Are there any benefits to taking this certificate versus students who do not? For example, are certain classes only open to the healthcare certificate students?
No. There's no preference given to the healthcare certificate registrants when it comes time to enrolling in courses. Of course, if you complete all of the requirements for the certificate, then you are able to say on your resume, on LinkedIn, that you have completed the certificate. So there is that advantage.
I think also to add, as Melissa mentioned, when you register yourself to the certificate, you get notified of activities that the certificate organizes. And so you get heads up information on upcoming events. So that's one big advantage.
Yes, and to distinguish that you get if you register, and you can stay registered for the certificate all the way through your 2 years, even if you don't complete the requirements. So that information is available to you regardless. And then there's the question of whether you complete the requirements for the certificate and are able to claim that on your CV.
I'm gonna jump into another question. What projects are available in H-Lab? Can students choose?
So in Healthcare Lab, in H-Lab, we will have more projects available than student teams. All of the projects are done in teams of 4 students. And there is a bidding process that happens in the first month of class where the students form teams and then submit their preference of which projects to be on. And as I mentioned, we do have an excess of projects in order to give students a fair range in selecting those. And I believe on, let me just check on the web page about that. I think we have some project examples. So on the Action Learning page at MIT, which I strongly recommend checking out anyway, that does give some examples of types of organizations or types of projects that students do.
Here's another question. To clarify, we will need to take 3 core modules, which are in spring of first year and fall of second year. And how many credits / modules do we take in addition to this?
All right, so thank you. Please, Sheila.
I'm gonna go back to there.
Right, so stated another way, let me do it chronologically rather than by course. So chronologically, in your fall semester, you're doing DMD anyway. That is one of the prereqs for Healthcare Lab. In that fall of your first year, you also get to pick one elective, and you could choose to do Intro to Ops as your elective during the fall semester, or you could do Intro to Ops in the spring semester, which is your other prereq for Healthcare Lab. So then in the spring of your first year, you could take the other 2 electives, or you could wait until spring of your second year. So then moving into your second year, you have to do Healthcare Lab in the fall. It's only offered then, and you're not able to take it during your core semester. Spring of second year, you're doing the second of the 2, you're doing any of the remaining required courses. If you didn't do them in the prior spring, then anywhere along the way, you are doing your electives. And please ask additional questions if that's not clear. If you go to the website for the Healthcare Certificate Curriculum and Requirements, down at the bottom, there's a nice kind of visual that that corresponds to what I just described.
I think here's a related question to that. How does extending from the spring term to IAP work? Does that mean we stay over the winter?
So from the fall term into IAP, so you're doing courses during the fall, doing class sessions for H-Lab during the fall. You are engaging with the project host also during that fall semester. And each team spends 5 days on site with their company, and most of them choose to do it during IAP rather than trying to fit it in during the semester when they, of course, have numerous other classes as well. So the team and the host find a mutually agreeable time to do that during IAP. So they could do it during the first week of IAP, they could do it during the last week, in the middle, it's up to them. So they do need to be, most of our projects are in the greater Boston area, so the team does need to be where that project is hosted. If it's not in the greater Boston area, it will be in the US. So teams have generally found a lot of flexibility in terms of scheduling, and that we really work with them to find something that works for everybody on the team and for the host.
Here's another question. Are topics covered in the Medicine for Managers and Entrepreneurs course flexible? I'm particularly interested in learning about gastroenterology in more detail.
I recommend reaching out to the faculty member directly to inquire about that, and so Richard Cohen, and asking him what will be covered in the semester that you will be taking the course. So I'm sure that it does evolve some over time due to changing nature of medicine. So it is worth checking on what he will be offering, as well as expressing your interest in what you would like to see covered. My generic recommendation, and my colleagues here can share their viewpoint, my generic recommendation when you're reaching out to a faculty member is to copy their support staff person. And if you look up the bio of that faculty member on the Sloan website, on the right-hand side, you'll see their support staff person, and to copy them on those emails.
A little bit related is if you take a different action lab other than H-Lab in the fall semester and do a healthcare-based project, is H-Lab also required?
I need to check on that, actually. Typically, we do still require that you take healthcare lab because it's not just the project that you're learning from, it is the course material in healthcare lab that is so substantive for you for the certificate. So we'll have to check on that for you. However, we do have students who somehow manage to do 2 action learning courses in one semester. It does have a sort of interesting schedule impact for you, but I've had a number of students do that.
Another question is, if you take the EM lab and it's with a healthcare company, could it be considered an elective?
You can petition for that. Yep, so the link for that, I'm not putting my eye on it at the exact moment, but it is on the healthcare certificate website. Yes, so on the page I was just mentioning with the certificate curriculum and requirements, that at the bottom has that timeline I mentioned. About midway down the page, it has a click here to waive a prerequisite, and then farther down, a click here for the elective request form. And also an action learning elective request form.
So I don't know, Melissa, if you want to circle back to that question about somebody who would like to take classes that look into hospital operations, and if you have such classes.
Yes. So as I mentioned, healthcare lab definitely looks into that. And 15784 operations lab, if you do a healthcare project, you would also be looking at that. And just taking a look further at this, if you provide your email to Sheila, then I can, or if you would prefer to reach out to me directly, either of those avenues, I can have one of my colleagues get back to you with a little more information on that. I can tell you that Retsef Levy, the professor for HLab, that's his research area exactly. And I know a number of students who have done deeper research into hospital operations. I'm not sure which course they did that through, but that is something that students have done. There was a student, one of my peers as an MBA student, who then went on to work for Mass General Hospital in management.
Another question, how many students complete the healthcare certificate?
The past 2 years, we had about 16 to 18, and that is across degree programs.
Another question is, if we're doing 2 certificates, say healthcare and business analytics, and there is an operations lab project including healthcare and data analytics, can the action learning be shared on both certificates?
Let me check on the specifics of that. Again, we generally have not, because we think that the healthcare specific learning that you get in HLab is so beneficial to the certificate and to your knowledge that we're attesting that you have. Analytics lab, operations lab, those are fantastic classes. You would have great project experiences in doing that. You would not have that wrapper of the healthcare experience. You could petition, you certainly could petition to have them count as your electives. So certainly could count as electives. What we don't typically do is count them as your action learning requirement in substituting for HLab. So I see that this is an area to provide additional clarification on, and we will do that.
We've answered all of the questions. We'll give it another minute or so for anybody to post any questions in the Q&A functionality, and we'll wrap it up after that.
While you all are thinking about that, on the resources link that is at the top of the screen, once you're on that page, you can click on curriculum and requirements on the left-hand menu, and that is where I've been referencing in a couple of recent questions.
We got 2 questions, so I'll read the first one. I just put an application. Will we get a confirmation email?
I don't know, but I will check on that.
And then the other question is the certificate open to international students if they are keen to join the healthcare industry?
It is open to all MIT students, regardless of national origin.
We're still open to more questions. Feel free to type them in the Q&A functionality. Great, we have another question. The links don't seem to be working for me to register.
So in that case, email healthinnovation@MIT. Or perhaps try it again in 10, 20 minutes in case there's some technical anomaly going on. I will also have our admin check on the registration confirmation. So if there's not one that automatically comes to you, I will have her reach out to you manually via email to say your registration has been received. Her name is Lisa Maloney, so when you see that name in your inbox, that's what it's doing.
So the link to the registration, it's there's a little typo on it. It should be hsi.mit.edu/register.
Thank you.
So just type it that way and you'll be able to register to the certificate.
Good catch, Sheila. Thank you.
Or actually /registration.
All right. Teamwork.
Yes.
We like teamwork.
And also on the link for the registration form, it asks as a required field student ID number. And if you have not, well, you actually all incoming students would have received their MIT ID number.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for checking on that.
Somebody actually pointed the correct address, but unfortunately not everybody can see the questions. So just to repeat, it's hsi.mit.edu/registered or registration, both work. So another question came is, which classes have been most popular with previous current students?
I don't have that information at the moment. Of course, I would like to say all of them, but we would have to look up that number for you. And I believe when students do their bidding, when they do bidding in the fall for the upcoming semester and later on for each upcoming semester, you can see what the enrollment has been in each course, as well as any that have closed in the bidding process. That's what I'm seeing from students currently doing bidding. So you will have more information on that as it gets closer to your enrollment time.
Also during bidding, and I just want to add this additional information, you will be able to see the surveys of the classes and how they ranked among the students, and that also is a good indicative of the popularity of the class, the quality of the content, the teacher, etc.
Yeah, Sheila makes a good point, because it's not just the number of enrollees. You want to see what kind of experience they had in the course, and in what ways it was valuable for them.
In all of that information, if you're interested in accessing that, it's in the sloanbid.mit site. If you go to that site, you can, on the left-hand menu, you can access course information, surveys, etc., regarding all the courses at Sloan and MIT. We don't have more questions. We'll give it another minute or so, and feel free to use again the Q&A functionality to answer any questions you may have. Okay, thank you, Melissa. We hope this information on healthcare certificate was helpful. Once again, if you have further questions, please reach out to the MBA program office, Melissa in the Health Systems Initiative. Thank you for joining the webinar, the MBA webinar, and we look forward to seeing you in August.